Hi folks, welcome back to the another video. Today we will see the storage classes and PV volumes, and at last we will see the practical session as well. So why the storages are using the Kubernetes in the case? Usually we can deploy a pod without a storage as well. Like we can casually we can create a pod without a volume, and we can create a files inside that also. But what the challenge came in the picture, we can't consistently keep the data or retrieve from the volumes. So that's what's happening, and we can't dump a lot of data into the pod file systems, right? So there uh, at beginning, so this is the first volumes they were used, ephemeral. So this one will store the data. So ephemeral in the sense a short time, not a long time, short time it will store a data until the pod exists. Once the pod is deleted, the data will also will be deleted. So what ephemeral will use, mostly empty dir will use, right? Empty at pod startup, the storage coming locally from the kubelet based directory used the root disk or RAM. So it will store in RAM or the root disk. Alright. So it will give a huge load over the RAM and consume more memory utilization. Alright. And it's not a persist. We can't consistently keep the data. So design uses because the volume from the pod lifetime and get and deleted along with the pod. Pod can be stopped and restarted without being limited where some persist volume is available. Right? So it's not a consistent volume. Then so this is a one kind of local without persist data we can use in this way, empty there, right? And to store a data, so we came there is a storage class. So what happened? So after ephemeral, in that they use the empty dir, and then there will be a host path. So this will, it's a local provisioner. So it will save the data in the node underline node directory. So how we can say? So we can see persistent volume and see host path type. Yeah, in that deployment or pod YAML, we can deploy the directory like type host path we can give on the host directory. If it's running in some node, if we deploy a pod, it will run in the node, and in that node it will create a, in which path we are defining. In that path it will create the directory and will store data all what we are dumping in the pod file system. So it will store underlying host. So that means if you log in the node and if you check the directory, the data will be presented there. Alright, it's a host path. So this is the second thing, and the third, persistent volume. So this one came. So persistent volume, what it will do, we want to, an administrator want to provision that from a storage class, and we want to create a PVC. So for that, if we create the pod and we want to request a storage by PVC, and that request will go for the PV, and that request will claim from the storage class, right? So we'll go for the storage class first. So in the storage class, first a cluster requires storage. All right. So in the storage, all the applications data, database data, cluster backup, whatever, it will be stored in the storage class. So this is the main thing. We can create a multiple storage classes. Administrator to describe the classes of they offered. Different classes might map to the quality of service levels or backup policies. All right. So they can create a multiple provisioners with so provisioners in the sense local like we see nearly host path, also local storage or cloud storage, Azure file, SIF, FS, iSCSI's local NFS. NFS is mostly used, and recently SIF FS also mostly used. And Portworx, it's a third-party vendor. These are everything is third-party vendors. We can consider them. Provisioner and for example, so by default the CRC OpenShift having a default storage class. All right, this is a CSI host path provisioner. Host path provision in the sense this cluster is running in the virtual machine kubevirch.io host path provisioner here, right? Virtual machine, and in that virtual machine there is a file system and it uses as a storage class. All right, hope you got. So whatever we creating inside this parts and we mounting with the pvc and pv, so those will store in this host path only. So and it is a default, right? So whatever we provisioning, it will climb this one only because it's in a default. If we are not declaring this as a default, if nothing is there, it will take this as a default. For example, if you create something else, so reclaim, I will expand this. Provisioner, for example, a vendor, AWS, GCE, Gluster FS, Cinder, Azure, vSphere, Portworx, whatever. So I will go with a no provisioner, wait for a first consume, and it create a storage class. So now this is not a default one, and if it is a default one, it will come to this. Request all will come to this, or else it will go for the default one. All right. Reclaim policies. Reclaim policies are important thing. If we are, if the reclaim policy is set to reclaim, retain, and the data will be processed there until the another PVC provisioned. We can claim that. If it's declared as delete, if you delete the PVC, and we can't retrieve the data. So that's what. So now we will see this and we will delete data. So we'll go for the PV. So this is a default. It's great for image registry. So we'll see the first PV. Now storage class is clear. We will use a third party vendor NFS, self storage, ODF, or Portworx. A lot of vendor third party provisioners are there. We use them and we will mention here and we can create them. All right, after creating it, and we can go for PV. So PV basically we administrator used to create, or rather itself, like dynamically it can able to create. So persistent volume. Persistent volume is a piece of storage in the cluster that provisioned by an administrator. Alright, if you create the PV, we can use it, or rather dynamically it can also able to create by declaring a storage class. If we mention the storage class and we declare this dynamically, and whenever a request coming from PVC, and it automatically create the PV as well, and it will claim it from storage class. Right. When we provisioned for a dynamic, so we see in the storage class, now we go for a persistent volume. There are two types, okay, right? Static, dynamic. A static, a cluster administrator creates a number of PVC. All right. So if an additional PVC's request is coming, it can't claim, because in static there will be a constant PV that an administrator used to create. So in the case, so it will be a challenge. So this is not much used. So dynamic. So we'll go for this. Provisioning is based on the storage class. The PVC must request a storage class, and the administrator must have created and configured that class for dynamic provisioning to occurs. Alright. So we want to mention in this storage class default one, and in PVC also we want to mention it. If we are not mentioning, and it will go for the default, right? If we didn't mention dynamic storage, if we didn't mention that, and it will go for the default storage class, nothing else. All right. So now we will go for the PVC. A PVC is a request for a storage by a user. That means a deployment is created and a user should create a PVC. So it will request to the PV and it will climb from the storage class. The request will create the PVC because it's in dynamic. So what it will happen, once application deployment happened and user used to create a PVC within the namespace, and PVC will request directly to the storage class and provision the PV and the storage also. Alright, they can mount with the read write on, like these are the access mode types. That means in which aspect the file systems should behave. Alright, see that. So these are types of PV, like storage classes. So local NFS, we seen that was path. So these are access mode. Access modes are very important to declare, else we will get some challenges. The volume can be mounted as a read write by single node. That means a pod can read write files in the volume. So if you want only the data should be read by the pod in the aspect, you want to declare as a read only many. So you can see here. So these are the abbreviations. So RWO, so read write on, read write many, RWX, read write many, read only many, ROX, right? So these are the cases. Then 1.29, there is an additional one came, read write once pod access. So it can be, if you want to ensure that only one pod can across the whole cluster can read the PVC or write it, we can use the read write once pod, this config. Alright. So these are the PVC's attributes. So, and one more thing we want to see, that is reclaim policy. So similar in storage class, how it will be, if we give retain and data will be there, if you give delete, and once we delete the volumes, like pod deployment, and it will simultaneously delete the PVC and the data also will be deleted, and it will give some spaces to the storage class, right? So that's it. So now what we gonna do, we will create a PV, like PVC, and it will auto provision the PV because using a dynamic storage. So by default it will be a dynamic, right? Storage will created by the administrator. A developer user, what he needs to do, he will create a PVC and it will provision for the storage class. Right, so we already tested a pod with this YAML. So, like, we will create a PVC with the provisioner name and the pod, and pod name is Nginx. Simple pod, I'm not going to use any deployment. So first we will create the PV with the my PVC, like PVC, and read write once, and storage 1 GB will give the request. And now what we do in container, volume mount. So where this volume gonna mount, that means this PV is a volume, name is data volume, persistent volume claim, yes, this is the type, and claim name is my PVC. So here the name is PVC, and in the container under the spec section, in container where it want to mount, volume mount. So it is used to mount the volumes, this command, and name data volume. So we will drag the volume name here. Yes, that is the data, like a pvc we gonna mount. Yes, in the which directory, under user share nginx/html. Right, we will create this pod, we will create some data inside, and we will delete the pod, and again we will create the pod and we will check it, and the data won't be there. And once we again we mount this, and we can see the data which we created previously, it will present it there. Alright, because this volume will store the data. Alright, let me go for the exercise quickly. Right, if it's already storage classes are there, we'll go to create the pvc, create it, storage class, yes, same default one, and name my pvc. Alright, read write user once, and we'll give 1 GB and we'll create it. Alright, so it's in pending state. Why it's in pending? Because it's not yet bounded. Right, so workloads, go for the pods, create the pod. We will remove this YAMLs. Take this YAML. Alright, so we'll create it. Nginx container creating. Successfully pull the image. Alright, running. That's running. Okay, we'll open the terminal. Let's cd user /share/ what is the name, nginx ls where we are html, enter into that. Nothing is there, right? Okay, we will create a data echo j is great, right? We will redirect to not dot, redirect to the file j.txt. ls, right, there is a file cat j.txt. j is a great, alright, so this is the data we use in the pod file system we have created, and now it's in the pvc. So now we're gonna delete this pod and we'll check detail and pods, default namespace. See, in this pod right now volume is mounted, data, its name is data volume, and it's mounted in the user /share/ nginx/html. So type pvc, available 10 GB yet. So what we gonna do now? Rewrite once. We'll delete it. Right. Pod delete. And now we'll create the pod with the same name but without mounting anything. Just a pod without a volume mount. See, if we delete now, pvc will still present. Still it's there, right? It bounded with storage class. See, once we created the pvc, see, it got created the pv also. See, this is the pvc automatically created, right? Suppose system volume detail storage class and PVC bounded with the PVC. You will see in the storage class, so return policy is there, local, and what else? So this is the, if you set to true, it will be a default class. If you set false, and if you set some another true, and it won't be like, if you set to false itself, it won't be a default class. Alright, and you can see this default will remove. However, if you create a PVC, if there is only one storage class, or there are a lot of multiple storage class, which is the recently or mostly used storage class, it will claim that as a storage class. So which is often used or multiple times. So it will claim that as a default. Right. So you create the pod. Now it's running. We didn't mount anything, any volume. So we'll check that. So where are we? So there is an index file. What is there in the index file? So this is default HTML. So if we expose this, we will get this welcome page, but the data is not there in this directory HTML. Alright, we have created one, right? So now we will mount that volume and we will check it. Alright, so we want to mount that in the Nginx pod. So far we want to use the command which won't work in my PowerShell. So far we will delete this and we will mount it with the pod, or we will edit. Same YAML we will use. Right, we will delete this. Create the pod. Creating. Right. What we'll do, paste. Come on, paste it. Useless. Right, we enter into the HTML ls. You're right, the data is there because we have created before. Get the data. Yeah, the data also there. You see, the PVC is mounted with the pod right now. If you try to delete the PV, it won't delete the PVC because it's still mounted and used in the used by the consumer, like pod or some deployment means it won't delete because it's still in the terminating because it have binded with the PVC. If you delete the PVC and pod, and it will delete it. Right, delete PV. See, it's still in terminating. You want to delete the pod, it will delete the both. So once you delete the pod, now it will delete the PVC and will delete the PV as well. Right, will delete the pod. The data also will delete. Delete the pod. Now see, PVC deleted, PV also deleted. Alright. So alright guys, go through this documents. are the very basics we should know. So types of volumes. So what are the types? We can mount the storage, we can mount the secrets, we can mount the config maps to config to communicate between two paths with the data or share some file systems. We use the mounts volume, right? And if a pod having multiple container, they will share the resource internally, locally, right? Okay guys, we'll meet in another video. Thank you.